Tell me, if one day you received an invitation to play a survival game, what would you say? Yes or no? Our heroes of today took part in this. Hi everyone, my name is Dr. Fox, and today I am going to tell you about the movie Claustrophobia. Several strangers received a strange package. It is a hexagonal cube. No one knows how to open it, what to do with it, and there were incomprehensible notes with this cube. The guys began to study this cube and solve the puzzle. After a while, everyone found the answer. The cube contained an invitation to a quest, and the prize fund was $10,000. This interested every person who had a cube. Well, who would not want to get simple money? The quest participants did not hesitate and arrived at the place. But the room was empty. They thought that some prisoner would appear there. But everything did not go according to plan. One of the participants named Ben suspected something was wrong. He wanted to leave the room, went to the door, took hold of the door handle, and it fell off. Instead, a timer appeared, similar to an electronic clock from the oven. The guys started looking for an answer. Mike picks up the book Fahrenheit 451 from the shelf. So he thought it was the title of the book. This is the solution to the puzzle. She set the timer to 451. And then the red light came on. Apparently, the task begins. The temperature gradually began to rise. It was getting very hot. The panic began. Ben grabbed a fire extinguisher, thought about putting out the damn lamps, but it only got worse. The fire extinguisher turned out to be not only plastic, but also served as a lever for other incandescent lamps. Now the room was really hot. One of the participants in Sue's quest looked at the wall. There was an inscription. Dr. Wooten asks you to use the cup holders. The girl thought it was a clue. She went to the table, and there really were some incomprehensible buttons. She pressed one of these buttons, and then the ventilation hatch opened a crack. But that's not the problem. But how do I get there? In order for the hatch to open completely, each person had to press their own button. But if you do, not everyone will be able to get inside. To solve the puzzle, the guys decided to look for a glass. They filled them with water and then set them on the buttons. So they pressed all the buttons and climbed inside. Everything worked out as it should. A little more and they would all have been fried alive. Well, now they had to open the lock in this strange house. The antlers of a deer caught Ben's attention, and they had different letters on them. Ben saw a name there, the name of the person who died in the accident due to his fault. Ben realized that this was the answer. This man's name was Rodolphe. Ben told the guys to enter this name. The lock opened. The hero entered a new room. It was a cold wasteland. An icy wind was blowing. It was obvious that if you did not get out of here as soon as possible, they'll all just freeze to death. In search of answers, the heroes were able to find a hole in the ground. They thought there might be a clue there. But how do I get it? Everyone went on a search, and Mike found a fishing rod. He lured it into the hole and took out an ice cube. The key was bricked up there. To open this cube. Then he asked Ben for a lighter, and when he went to meet him, the thin ice began to crack under his feet, and he fell through. Dan started screaming hysterically. "Guys, help me, I cannot breathe. It hurts." They tried to save him, but nothing worked. The first person in the team died. The heroes began to suspect that the prisoner was among them.
He's already here.
Games Master? I work at a grocery store.
A man who was always there and watched everything. Suspicion fell on Ben, because Dan died at the exact moment he took the lighter from Ben. They argued for several minutes, but in the end, they did not come to a common answer. Was he a traitor? Or someone else is a traitor? Nothing is clear yet. There was no more time to argue. The lighter went under the ice with Danny. The team decided to warm this cube with the warmth of their hands. Each person stood for several hours with their hands on the cube. While waiting for their turn, people literally froze to death. After a few hours, the cube melted. The hero took the key and began to open the door to a new room. But only the door opened from the wrong side. A red light came on, and the heroes ran to him. The ice underfoot began to explode. It cracked and broke. There was a feeling that there were some kind of bombs. Despite this obstacle, they still managed to get out. They did not have time to enter the new room. How everything started to shake.
Oh my God! What is that?
This room was an elevator that carried them straight up. Leif reached the 20th floor, and then he stopped. The floor began to sag. Mike looked down, and a wild feeling of fear seized him. Apparently, this is a room where the floor is constantly collapsing. Every second, a new piece fell off this floor. Sooner or later, everyone would have fallen. Strange demonic music started playing. It looks like a chewed up audio cassette. The room was turned upside down and all the objects were turned over. Amanda went to look for the source of this unpleasant sound and came across a safe. Mike suggested to dial a combination of 1, 2, 3, 4. He said it should work, but it did not happen. So he realized that Mike was of no use. She moved forward and noticed that the squares on the shelf were a puzzle. When trying to move these plates, the floor began to break again. Then they started entering combinations by looking at billiard balls. They thought it would work, but things stalled again. The shelf on which the guys were fixed began to break. There were too many of them, and so he fell. She had been in a similar situation before, and memories popped into her head. She's lying in the cockpit of an airplane, where all the people are dead. After the crash of this plane, all the passengers died, and only Sui remained alive. When Sui regained consciousness, she asked to enter the code 0186. On the very flight on which she crashed, the safe was open. There was a billiard ball lying there. This is the key. Amanda started to back away. She jumped up and caught on the table. But the ball fell. Despite the feeling of horror, the girl followed him. The floor collapsed. Amanda managed to throw the ball and catch on the foam. But the handset came off. Amanda died. Well, as the test passed, with the help of the ball, the heroes opened the door to a new room, but Amanda is no more. In the new room, the old medical office, where everything was scattered, where the lights suddenly turned on, it was creepy. In each ward there was a past of the main characters. It turns out that they got into this game for a reason. Every hero had to die. Ben was supposed to crash in a Vevere, so he would die on the plane, and Amanda would die from burns in the war. But everyone survived thanks to a miracle. Death but passed them. The timer on the till lit up for 5 minutes. If you do not do anything, everyone will die. The guys thought about it. They looked at their x-rays and saw the sign language on them. In order to survive, someone has to die. Jason brought a cardiograph. He offered Mike a temporary death. Of course he refused. He said, "You were sick. I want to live, dude." Jason pointed at the and said, "We have 1 minute left. If someone does not die, then everyone will be poisoned." As a result, Mike was put into an induced coma, but when Jason tried to resurrect him, it did not work. But the door opened, the gas started to spread, and the gas were high. So he lost consciousness and could not get out. Only Jason and Ben got into the new room. Ben started accusing Jason of being a murderer. It turned out to be true. In the past, he was wrecked in the ocean. He and a friend got stuck on a boat. To survive, Jason had to kill his friend and take his jacket. Otherwise, he would have died of the cold. Jason pinned Ben to the ground and said, "Dude, I had no choice. If my friend had not died, then I would have died. Let's get busy and get out of here." Then the guys joined forces and began to open the hatch. He was wearing some kind of drug that caused them to hallucinate. The characters got into a drug trip. They began to rave and laugh maliciously. Then Ben saw the antidote, and so did Jason. They started fighting for this antidote, but Jason lost. As a result, Ben was injected. He left the room and headed for the hangar. There were pictures of him around, and the presenter's voice began to come from the speakers. "Well, Ben, you won. I bet on Jason, but this loser turned out to be a weakling."
Now you were a dark horse. My money was on Jason.
Then the presenter himself came out from behind the scenes. He told me that the world has long been rotten, has become boring, evil and greed reign around. This guy said that they created this quest to uncover the darkest sides of man, and the rich alike paid money to watch people turn into animals and torture each other. He lit a cigarette, sat down on the balcony. But eventually the man came over, wrapped the wire around his neck, and then started strangling him. Ben was gradually losing consciousness. He was dying. So he appeared out of nowhere. It turns out she was immune to the poison, and she stayed alive. So he pointed the gun at the dude, but he knocked her down. Ben woke up and hit this dude with a bottle and then shot him. When the gas came out, so he contacted the police. Together with the police, she arrived at the place where the quest took place, but there was nothing there. Not a single trace, not even a hint that there was any kind of game here. And all the corpses were identified as an accident. The headline said that Amanda died during the ascent, Jason drowned in the sea. And the creators of the quest removed the traces and went unpunished. At the end of the film, we are shown an airplane. He's going to fall soon, but it is not just an accident. This is a new quest that starts very soon.
Let's play again.
Let's play